Fantastic Mr. Fox. Up to chapter 7. We'll never let him go. Hang on. Too much hair. Pop it away. Pop it away. Grab my teddy. There we go. Chapter 7, Fantastic Mr. Fox. We'll never let him go. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Bean switched off the motor of his tractor and climbed down from the driver's seat. Bunce did the same. Both men had had enough. They were tired and stiff from driving tractors all day long. They were also hungry. Slowly they walked over to the small fox's hole in the bottom of the huge crater. Bean's face was purple with rage. Ugh. Bunce was cursing the fox with dirty words that cannot be printed, and Boggis came waddling up. "Dang and bast, that filthy, stinking fox," he said. "What the heck do we do now?" "I'll tell you what we don't do," Bean said. "We don't let him go." Teddy's all uncomfortable. Sit properly, Teddy. There you go. "We'll never let him go," Bunce declared. "Never, never, never," cried Boggis. "Did you hear that, Mr. Fox?" yelled Bean, bending low and shouting down the hole. "It's not over yet, Mr. Fox. We're not going home till we've strung you up as dead as a dingbat." Whereupon all three men shook hands with one another and swore a solemn oath they would not go back to their farms until the fox was caught. "What's the next move?" asked Bunce, a pot-bellied dwarf. "We're sending you down the hole to fetch him," said Bean. "Down you go, you miserable midget." "Not me," screamed Bunce, running away. Bean made a sickly smile. When he smiled, you saw his scarlet gums. Yeah, you saw these bits and he smiled. Eee. That was a scary smile. Eee. You saw more gums than teeth. "Then there's only one thing to do," he said. "We'll starve him out. We'll camp here all day and night watching the hole. He'll come out in the end. He'll have to." So Boggis, Bunce and Bean sent messages down to their farms asking for tents, sleeping bags and supper. Chapter 8. The foxes begin to starve. That evening, 3 tents were put up on the crater on the hill. One for Boggis, one for Bunce and one for Bean. The tents surrounded Mr. Fox's hole, and the 3 farmers sat outside their tents, eating their suppers. Boggis had 3 boiled chickens smothered in dumplings. Bunce had 6 doughnuts filled with goose livers. And Bean had 2 gallons of cider. 2 gallons of cider, that's a massive amount. Even mummies and daddies would be tipsy after that. All 3 of them kept their guns beside them. Boggis picked up a steaming chicken and held it close to the fox's hole. "Can you smell this, Mr. Fox?" he shouted. "Lovely tender chicken. Why don't you come and get it?" The rich scent of chicken wafted down the tunnel to where the foxes were crouching. "Oh, Dad," said one of the small foxes, "couldn't we just sneak up and snatch it out of his hand?" "Don't you dare," said Mrs. Fox. "That's just what they want you to do." "But we're so hungry," they cried. "How long till we get something to eat?" Mother didn't answer them, nor did their father. There was no answer to give. As darkness fell, Bunce and Bean switched on the powerful lights of their 2 tractors and shone them down the hole. Look, the hole's here. "Now," said Bean, "we'll take it in turns to watch. One watches while 2 sleep, and so on through the night." Boggis said, "What if the fox digs a hole right through the other side and comes out the other side of the hill?" "You didn't think of that, did you?" "Of course I did," said Bean, pretending he had. "Go on then, tell us the answer," said Boggis. Bean picked up something small and black out of his ear and flicked it away. "How many men have been working on your farm?" he asked. 35, Boggis said. "I've got 36, said Bunce. "And I've got 37, said Bean. "That makes 108 men altogether. We must order them to surround the hill. Each man will have a gun and a flashlight. There'll be no escape then for Mr. Fox. So the order went down to the farms, and that night 108 men formed a tight ring. He looks like Teddy's reading. Formed a tight ring around the bottom of the hill. They were armed with sticks and guns and hatchets and pistols and all sorts of horrible weapons. This made it quite impossible for a fox, or indeed any other animal, to escape from the hill. The next day, watching and waiting went on. Boggis, Bunce and Bean sat on small stools, staring at the fox's hole. They didn't talk much. They just sat there with their guns on their laps. Bear wants to finish the rest of it. Every so often, Mr. Fox would creep a little closer towards the mouth of the tunnel and take a sniff. Sniff! Then he would creep back and say, "They're still there." "Are you quite sure?" Mr. Fox would ask. "Positive. I can smell that Bean Man a mile away. He stinks." Hey, nice work, Bear. He's pretty cool, isn't he? Oh, yeah. Let's go again. Every time I think I'm just going to read 2 chapters, and I think, do you know what? We'll go for the 3rd. It's called Mr. Fox Has a Plan. For 3 days and 3 nights, this waiting game went on. How long can a fox go without food or water? Boggis asked on the 3rd day. Not much longer now, Bean told him. He'll make a run for it soon. He'll have to. Bean was right. Down in the tunnel, the foxes were slowly but surely starving to death. "If only we could have a tiny sip of water," said one of the small foxes. "Oh, Dad, can't you do something? Can't we make a dash for it, Dad? We'd have a little bit of a chance, wouldn't we?" "No chance at all," snapped Mrs. Fox. "I refuse to let you go up there and face those guns. I'd sooner stay down here and die in peace." Mr. Fox had not spoken for a long time. He'd been sitting quite still, his eyes closed, not even hearing what the others were saying. Mrs. Fox knew that he was desperately trying to think of a way out, and now as she looked at him, she saw him stir himself and get slowly back up to his feet. He looked back at his wife. There was a little spark of excitement dancing in his eyes, wiggling. "What is it, darling?" said Mrs. Fox quickly. "Just had a bit of an idea," said Mr. Fox carefully. "What?" they cried. "Oh, Dad, what is it?" "Come on," said Mrs. Fox, "tell us quickly." "Well," said Mr. Fox, and he stopped and sighed, and sadly shook his head. He sat down again. "It's no good," he said. "It won't work after all." "Why not, Dad?" "Because it means more digging. And we aren't any of us strong enough for that after 3 days and 3 nights without food." I didn't check the pictures. Look, there you go. What's this one? This is Mrs. Fox with the little foxes. And Mr. and Mrs. Fox. Okay. There you go. And then it goes to Mr. Fox with the little foxes. It says, "None of us are strong enough after 3 days and nights without food." "Yes, we are, Dad," called the small foxes, jumping up and down and running to their father. "We can do it. You see if we can't." "So can you." Mr. Fox looked at the four small foxes and smiled. "What fine children I have," he thought. "They're starving to death and haven't had a drink for 3 days, but they're still undefeated. I must not let them down." I suppose we could give it a try," he said. "Let's go, Dad. Tell us what you want us to do." Slowly Mrs. Fox got to her feet. She was suffering more than anyone from lack of food and water and was very weak. "I'm so sorry," she said, "but I don't think I'm going to be much help." "You stay right where you are, my darling," said Mr. Fox. "We can handle this by ourselves." Nice. It's got a little plan. Some of you read it before, so you know what's going to be. When we come back, it is Boggis's Chicken House #1. Night, Bear.